have God are, you're going to die, or you're going to have a family member die. That is why this information is so important. It's the documents that you need, and if you've missed any of the other documents, you can go on Cowboy-up Ministry or Skipper Calder, and you may have to scroll through 100 things, but you can find each of these classes that we've done. Might even find them on YouTube. Right. I just don't know where to look. But we got a lot to do. We're going to welcome Debbie Hunt, and she is going to lead us in today's documents. So let's go, girl.
Good morning. Oh, that's loud. Good morning to everybody. Today we're going to cover one more part of your estate planning documents. Just as a quick recap, we have already covered your do not resuscitate. We have covered your living will. We have covered your designation of a healthcare surrogate. We've covered designating a healthcare surrogate for minors, and we've covered the document that allows you to donate your organs in addition to putting it on your driver's license. So that's what we've done so far. Today we're going to cover the durable power of attorney. A lot of information about this. This is when you are defining somebody. Are we getting?
You just keep it there.
Okay. This is when we're defining someone to make decisions for you if you are incapacitated and unable to make the decisions on your own. This would be like paying your bills, maintaining your mortgage, sell something if you need to sell something, oversee your investments. This is while you are incapacitated. You should each have a document that is headed Florida General Power of Attorney. And what you'll see in this document is a whole bunch of places to initial, because this is what you are saying people can do or not do for you. If you don't initial it, they can't do it.
Wow.
And you're not supposed to draw a line through it. Those of us that like to draw lines through things that people aren't supposed to do, I'm told to move it out. The ones... If you draw a line through it, you're kind of going to make it difficult to stay good. It could be considered null and void if you do. So please do not draw lines through yours. It's really easy to initial. Just make sure that you read each description. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between a power of attorney and a durable power of attorney. A power of attorney is something that you can give somebody.
You just keep talking.
If you were in a state different from where you have real estate. So say one of us here in Florida has real estate in North Carolina, and you want to sell that piece, the property or home or whatever you have in North Carolina. You can write a power of attorney that just gives somebody the responsibility and the ability to do it for you, to go ahead and sell the property, sign all the papers, take care of all the transactions that need to be taken care of as a part of that particular piece of property. You can designate power of attorney for other items as well. A durable power of attorney is where the individual, that would be us, have defined and have picked somebody that can act in our stead if we become incapacitated. And that allows them to take care of finances, it allows them to take care of real property, your stock and bond transactions, anything that you would normally be doing in your day-to-day life. It could be that you're in a coma temporarily, and they would take care of it during that period of time, for however long that time was. And then at the end of it, that durable power of attorney would end when you are able to take care of your own details moving forward.
Yeah, that's good.
If you die, then it also stops, and it moves into your last will and testament, and how any other document that has defined who's going, because in your last will and testament you define who is going to take care of your estate. So that's why it's so important to understand the differences and the limitations. Your power of attorney is for a specific transaction or transactions, and your durable power of attorney is for if you are incapacitated and need to have things taken care of until you regain consciousness and ability to do it, or you pass away, whichever it may be.
You need them all.
You need, unfortunately, you do need all these documents in place so that your family does not have to worry about what you wanted, and more importantly, your family doesn't fight about it and make a sad situation way worse than it needs to be. And families have been completely divided, and siblings no longer speak as a result of these type of documents not being in place, and everybody thinking they know what's best, or they want something and nobody defined, the person didn't define who was supposed to get it. So, does a durable power of attorney need to be notarized in Florida? Yes, it does. It also needs 2 witnesses. Do you have to have an attorney take care of your power of attorney? Not necessarily. That's going to be up to you. All of these documents and the links on the website will take you to a place where you can do all the documents on your own. However, if you have an estate that is of any value at all, it is well worth it to use an attorney to make sure you've dotted every I and crossed every T and didn't leave anything to chance or opportunity for fighting. So how do you make a power of attorney? You have to decide first what type of power you're giving. You have to decide who you want to be your agent. And we've talked, same thing with the other documents. You may or may not want to make it a family member. You may want to make it a friend. You may want to make it somebody that you know has experience in doing it and will handle it well for you. You have to decide who best to take care of that for you. The other thing is what authority do you want to give them? Because once you give them that authority, that's huge. A lot of things can be done. You give them an authority over your bank account to pay bills, you better be able to trust that person to know they're only going to pay the bills that you needed to pay on a regular basis, and not just all of a sudden have some other bills that, oh, here, let me pay this.
Sadly,
let me take
that
care
happens.
It happens all too often.
They pay their own bills with
Right.
your money.
Right. And then finally, of course, get the power of attorney form, which each of you have the durable power of attorney form handy to you, or the link has been put into the text box online.
Where can people online find these documents?
Google durable power of attorney for your state. I'll reiterate what I've said with each of the other documents. Make sure that the document that you're doing is legitimate in the state that you're in. Many of these power of attorneys transfer from state to state. You just have to make sure that that's going to be the case. To answer her question, she said, so you have to follow the laws for the state that you live in. Yes, if you're giving them power of attorney. So in your case, when you're saying somebody has the right to sell your property, then I would also check the other state to make sure there's not something you don't know, but you live and reside in Florida. So you base everything you're doing in Florida. Real estate, a lot of times your realtors are going to have that power of attorney. It's already drawn up, and they'll be able to provide it to you so that you can just fill it out and give it to them, saying you're giving somebody else permission.
Good information.
Okay. I noted before, does the power of attorney end if you die? Yes, it does. I know that sounds a little blunt. I even hesitate saying it. It sounds a little blunt, but this conversation is intended to be blunt so that each one here takes care of business before it's too late. Skipper.
Well, why is she looking at me?
I don't know either.
I'm not a procrastinator much.
except about these documents. Just saying. And I'm not picking on him about it, because I'm going to bet you there might be 2 people in this whole room that have actually, the whole area, that have actually done it, if anybody. So it's not
I
just
signed as a
picking on
witness
you.
on some.
Good. Thank you, Wiley, for you guys moving forward with filling out your documents as we go. You're the only one I'm aware of.
Edgar.
That has, oh, okay, Edgar has as well. Good. I was not aware of that. So, okay, so there's types of power of attorney. Durable, we've been talking about. General power of attorney, financial power of attorney, that's a little bit different. That gives your agent, that would be whoever you define, can take care of business for you. Trying to define all these words, they're all new. They can't just say, this is the person I define. There's a title for it, agent, so that they can handle your financial stuff. But keep in mind, your financial power of attorney does not handle your health care decisions. That's why you have to have a health care surrogate. It sounds complicated, but when you really think about it, it's really good to have each area specifically defined so there's no second guessing as to what is supposed to happen. And then there's a limited power of attorney, which we talked about, which is for a specific task. If you need it done by somebody, you can let them handle it. So what are the requirements of a power of attorney? Someone has to be at least 18 years old. That's key. Must be of sound mind. That means never... That's always questionable for anybody. On any given day, are you of sound mind? But you cannot have been declared incapacitated. And there's a process that is gone through that is very specific to determining or defining that someone is incapacitated. And it takes doctors, it takes nurses, it takes psychologists, and they all fill out a report, and it all goes into one place, and then a final decision is made as to yes or no, the person is or isn't incapacitated. You have to sign your power of attorney in the presence of 2 competent adult witnesses and a notary. We are very fortunate here. We have our own notary public. Sue Zealy is a notary, so if you need something notarized, reach out to Sue. She's always happy to help us with notaries. And in fact, she even re-upped it so that she could continue to help people by doing the notary for them. And ideally, your witnesses should be what they consider disinterested. That would be they aren't your agent that you are defining in that document. They are not someone who stands to inherit something from your estate, conflict of interest. And it should not be your doctor or someone else who's providing the health care services to you. They should not be your witnesses. And it should not be a family member who is related to you by blood or marriage. Because when there's conflict, that is absolutely, I promise you, been there, done that it is going to come up as a conflict of interest. So just know those things. This information is really easy to find online. Just ask the question, and you ask the question, and it'll spit it right back to you. Be concerned when it says it's been fact-checked. Just saying. So if you have a power of attorney, do you still need a will? Absolutely. Absolutely. The power of attorney only defines what they can do in your stead. It does not define all your individual wishes. So keep that in mind.
To make things even worse, if you've been in a divorce years ago and you've been married to somebody else for 20 or 30 years, still that's going to be a big fight if there's anything left over after you die, between which family gets what. So it needs to be in writing who you want to get what.
And if you have those, many people work and they have life insurance, they may have a retirement plan, they may have many different types of things that they get as a part of working for somebody, that you need to define your beneficiary. And every year in most businesses, they make you review your information. You need to review it, and you need to make the changes that are appropriate at that time. I'm aware of a friend whose husband unexpectedly passed away. Well, his former beneficiaries were still on his work documents, and that could have been a huge problem. They worked it out amicably between them. However, it could have been a really ugly situation. Or if you have an ex-wife or an ex-husband and they're on your old stuff and your new wife or husband should be on it, you need to consciously go back and make those changes. There are forms that have to be filled out so that you can make the changes officially.
Yep.
And making sure that remember I talked about at the very beginning 3 or 4 videos ago, have a notebook. That would be something you put in your notebook. And even if you have a copy of your old beneficiary form, this is where you can draw your line through it to say, nope, this is no good anymore, and then you put your copy of your new beneficiary form. So there's no question of what was and what is today as to what your intentions are. And another good point, I think I heard somebody mention, or jumped in my mind, I'm not sure which. Reminds me of my horse when he was working cows, and he just went, all of a sudden force split and his body went in 4 different directions because he wasn't sure which one he was going after. That's what my mind just did, just so you followed what it did. But if, for example, you designate 50% in your will, I'm kind of skipping ahead, but then I'll go back to the power of attorney. If you designate that so much is going to somebody, make sure you have a secondary designation. Because if something happens to that person and they they die before you do, then you're going to want to have somebody else designated, and how that's supposed to go. Like if I split mine between my brother and sister, I may say that whatever was going to my brother is then split with his kids, and whatever's going to my sister is then split with her kids, so that it's very clear what my intentions are.
Many years ago,
that was a jump ahead.
I knew a family that had a lot of property, and they gradually gave it all to their daughter so there wouldn't be all this whatever that happens, and she got killed in a car wreck.
Right.
So many times what happens in our first marriage, we have a life insurance, and if they're on that life insurance policy and you remarry, if you don't change it, they get it.
That's right.
Period. So that's one of the things that if you've been divorced, you want to make sure you change your life insurance policies.
And not all work out amicably like the one that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So, all right, there is a great guide. If you just, Kathy's going to put it in the text boxes so that you have the actual link. But there is a guide to making a Florida power of attorney. It's got a lot of really good information, and it explains everything and answers any questions that you may have. If you have a lot of detailed questions, I'm going to say again, I'm not an attorney. I'm just going through the documents just as if you were going through the documents. If you have a lot of detailed questions because of what you have, then get an attorney and get some input that will help you make those decisions. So it's called A Guide to Making a Florida Power of Attorney. Let me see if there's anything on there. I've already covered all the different topics. Yes, sir.
A quick question, which one of these documents would it fall under? And I'm going to use this as an illustration. My daughter, if if Paige and Christian both got in a car wreck, what document would they need to fill out to designate where the children go?
That would be in the document that we did last week, where you have a surrogate for those children.
Okay. Good deal.
And you would define that. You could also define that in your will. So you would actually...
We just knew there was going to be a fight if it wasn't us.
And that's now on camera.
And I mean it.
That's up to anybody. Okay, so if you'll pull out your form on the durable power of attorney, let's go through some of these areas so you're actually thinking about it a little more than if you just read it. I'm one of those that I have to take a piece of paper, tear it out, and I have to, in order to keep my eyes and my mind focused, I have to go down and read every single line as I go, because otherwise I'll skim it, think I know what it means, and have no clue what it means. So the first one, you obviously have to put your name and your address in. And just remember, if for some reason any of these documents do not have a place for you to sign, you need to be signing. In this document, it does give you date and that you've signed it. But all of these documents have to show that you wrote, this information was put in there, and you signed and dated it saying that you did it. And always make sure when you give a copy to the agent who's going to be responsible that they get the whole document. Not just, we had a situation in our family, and my mom had given 2 pages, the front 2 pages, but it didn't have the signature page. And when it got into a fight, because for some reason the signature pages had disappeared, there was nothing to stand on, even though it was clear what her wishes were. And so it became a big fight. So always make sure, in the courts for over a year. So always make sure that the full document is in your notebook as to what your wishes are. I would have a tab that has estate planning documents numbered, and I would put them in numerical order, not like some jokesters I know would do, which would be put 9, 7, 2, 1, put them out of order. Make sure you put them in order so that I know people are asking me what's wrong with that. But you really want to make it in a circumstance where it's very sensitive. You want to make it as easy as possible for those who have to use those documents. So make sure that you do. So then when you go down, you can do that. The question was, if it's such an important document, why wouldn't you sign at the bottom of each page? I personally would highly recommend that you initial and date each page so that it's very clear that you did it. Right. For example, in the will, you do sign and date each page as you go through it. So they're clear that exactly what you had stated in there is what you stated, sign, date. So great question. Thank you. So when you go through, you're saying you grant all of the powers. I'm reading from the middle of the page. All of the following powers. Initial the line in front of and ignore the lines in front of other powers. Meaning if you don't initial it, they don't have the authority to do it.
Okay.
You have to initial what you're giving the authority for. The first one is real property transactions. To lease, sell, mortgage, purchase, blah, 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 blah. There's a whole line of stuff that it says. Any real property on whatever terms and conditions and covenants that the agent shall deem proper. So read through that whole paragraph and make sure you're very clear on it before you initial it. Generally, if you're incapacitated, that's going to be necessary because most have a mortgage, and you're going to need somebody that continues to make that mortgage payment. I know that recently one of ours said he was, even after his wife had just passed, he said how blessed he was that he and his wife had sat down and they had put everything into their bank so that everything was on the bill pay option. So that was something he did not have to think about. So with your accounts, if you can, most banks allow you to do a bill pay option that says you pay your mortgage on the 28th of each month, so they receive it by the 1st or whatever day, however you're going to do it. Take the time to go in and set that up, because you don't want there to be a problem with your home that is part of your overall estate, and then all of a sudden, because the mortgage didn't get paid for X number of months while you're dealing with all this stuff, that all of a sudden the bank's going to take it. And I've seen that happen. So make sure that if you have that ability, go in and set it up so that you don't have to worry about it. And it's also it's also very helpful for the husband or the wife who is not responsible for paying all the bills to have had that taken care of, because in the case of one of ours who stated how appreciative he was that they had sat down and gone through that, because it took one more load off of his shoulders as he was trying to figure out how to negotiate life without her and take care of the kids and everything else that had to be done. So definitely something to consider. The second one is tangible personal property transactions. This also ties to any personal property that you may have that is not real estate. So that could be diamond rings, that could be anything that is considered real property. The third one, stock and bond transactions, to be able to purchase, sell, do anything that is necessary related to someone's stocks and bonds. Generally, if you have stocks and bonds, the person also has somebody who watches over that for them, but it would need to be identified that this agent could actually take care of those transactions or approve those transactions or other transactions while they're the agent. Commodity and option transactions. This would also talk about commodities, future contracts, and putting options on stocks and that are traded on the options exchange. Fifth one is banking and other financial institution. You're going to have this if they're going to be able to go to the bank and withdraw money for something that needs to be taken care of, or if they're going to be able to write a check so that they can continue to take care of your business. And I'm looking at Skipper, and
they
I
may
know
need
this
to transfer money
they may
from
need
one
to
account to another to pay bills.
So this is something that's important, it's important that they have a signed original copy, because they're going to have to take that to the bank so that it is known that that is what your wishes were. Insurance, business operating transactions. Sorry about skipped one. And I'm keeping an eye on you, Skipper, because this kind of talk usually rolls your eyes back in your head.
Yeah, you got 17 minutes. You go for it.
Way too much detail for you, I know. But the point I'm trying to make is you need to understand what each of these items are that you are initialing. It is critical that you understand the right that you're giving away, because best case, you go into not going into a coma isn't the best case, but hear me out. Go into a coma. It didn't come across quite as well as I wanted it to. You go into a coma and you come out of it 6 months later. You're not going to want to, when you start going back and looking at what was taken care of, you're not going to want that freak out moment that says, what the heck did you do while I was in a coma? You're going to want to have known that you gave these permissions and you gave it to somebody that you 100% trust to take care of it in the fashion that you yourself would have taken care of it had it been you doing it. And it can't be someone who, what comes to my mind is someone that yeses you all the time and agrees with you all the time, but you know they are very strong-willed and they're going to do whatever they want when the time comes. You don't want that. You want somebody that you 100% trust to do it the way you would have done it had you been the one doing it. So keep that in mind. Insurance and annuity transactions. You've got estate trust and other beneficiary transactions. So a question comes to mind. Can this person change your will? Thoughts? I see heads shaking no. That is correct. This person cannot go in and change your will.
Many have tried.
Many have tried. And in fact, if you're aware of them of somebody that is taking care of somebody else's business and they are trying to change the will, you need to notify the authorities that this is happening. That is a criminal violation. So just be aware of that. Claims in litigation to defend any actions that are going on at that time. Personal and family maintenance, hiring attorneys, hiring accountants, hiring consultants, nurses, physicians. And it sounds like that's an awful lot, but if you are incapacitated, you are going to need nurses, whether you're in a nursing facility or whether you're at home and the nurses are being brought in. And there is a whole process in this state and there's a whole industry in this state that absolutely takes care of that. And they need to, when you do this, you need to define, do you want to stay at home and be taken care of? And do you have the resources to make that happen? Or do you want to go into a home where you are taken care of and many think they're a burden to others, and I would tell you to take that out of your mind. If somebody wants to be at home, that's one thing. If somebody wants to go to a home, that's a whole nother thing. I really, really commend my mom's neighbors who they made this decision in the last couple of months that they were selling their big home because they can't keep up with the maintenance, they can't keep up with all the requirements, and they're moving over to a place in the Fort Myers area called Shell Point, where they have a progression, and it's actually Christian run and Christian funded, and it's a great, if anybody has never been there, it's a great facility. But it goes, you can be at Shell Point at any stage that you're progressing through as you're a senior and all of a sudden experiencing those things that we experience as we get older. And so if you can live alone, there's homes, there's apartments, there's like condos, and they have all the food services on the property, 4-star food services on the property. They have activities, whether it's woodworking or floral designs or card games or whatever it is people are interested in. They have a whole section of the facility for that. So this couple decided it was time for them to do that. And they consciously made the move. All their neighbors are shocked. But the reality is they're used to being taken care of like that because they lived in New York most of their life in the high-rises, and they had all of those services, and so they just want to continue that and not be a burden to family. Benefits from Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, or other government programs or military service needs to be in your notebook. You need to identify if they can initial and be responsible for that. Retirement plan transactions. A lot of people have retirement plans. You got to know whether, if necessary, can they take care of those things? Yes. Tax matters. You don't know how long they're going to be incapacitated. So you need to be able to prepare and take care of taxes each year. If you initial N, you are saying all of the powers above. The last line that's got N in parentheses, the letter N in parentheses, if you initial that, that means they can take care of everything that's identified above that. And then if you have special instructions limiting or extending the powers granted to your agent, you can write them in there.
Is in a good thing, or should it be mixed up a little?
Actually, it depends on your
individual?
estate. It
Okay.
depends on what you have. It depends on how much of it you control versus somebody else. So you would need to identify that. And this, you can, when you identify who your agent is, you can say Debbie Hunt and or Anita Peer, and or you can identify. Or if Debbie's not available, then Trish would be in charge. If Debbie's not available and Trish is not available, then Jim would be in charge. You can identify, and that's where I would say that's when you're going to start getting into needing an attorney to fill out a little bit more detailed form than this is. So that's where it's important to know that you may want more than one person, because what happens if something happened to me? What happens if something happens to Trish? You gotta have that kind of succession plan.
But
for
also,
that.
if you deal a lot in the stock market, you want somebody who does the stock market handling that part, not the rest of it.
Right.
And you don't want me handling your stock market, I promise you. I don't do well there.
And it may be that's what you put in your special instructions.
Yeah.
That like in the case, my brother-in-law is involved in the stock market, involved with different insurance companies or IRA plans, and so one of my family members has put in that Trisha's in charge of all these things, but her husband would be responsible for all the financial issues. So it's still in one document, but it states who. They probably put both of them, but said specifically want this person taking care of the financial issues. It is. Thank you,
Repeat.
Beverly. The use of and or is very important. If you put and, then you are saying the two of them together have to make that decision. If you put or, you can put and or, then it could be one or the other or both. If you put or, it can be one or the other. So it's really critical in how that is spelled out.
Good question.
Thank you for looking for clarification there. Power of attorney is effective immediately and will continue until it's revoked. That doesn't mean that just because you fill this out, that all of a sudden you're in charge of everything. It means that when it's handed over to you, because that person is incompetent, then you take over, and it's until further notice, or until it is revoked, or until the person dies. It depends on who you've given all your documents to. Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, who gives the original document to that agent? And that's, and she said, so if they know that you're in a coma, then the agent would need to come forward and say something. Yes, that would be true. And it kind of like puts it in a kind of a gray area, because if you're dealing with an attorney, then your attorney is the one that's going to take it and let the agent know you're incapacitated. But the point is a really good point. Attorneys aren't always notified.
Yeah, who notifies
because
the attorney?
Who knows who did all my documents?
Yeah.
Nobody would know. So it's important that you communicate your wishes and what you've done, especially to the person who is going to become that agent.
Another good question.
A coma is really easy to understand because it's black and white. Dementia is a whole other story.
It is, and I think that for the sake of this discussion, I'm just going to mention it because anybody that's going to have to go through this it's a whole different struggle. And the point that was made is if a person is in a coma, that is black and white. They're in a coma. When a person has dementia, there are many, many, many stages to it. And at a fairly early stage, they can be declared incapacitated, because someone who is incapacitated should not be making decisions on these type of documents, because someone who is, and I know this experience well, if you had dementia and I came to you and we were close and talking and, well, so have you filled out your information? Do you want to just go ahead and take care of it? Okay. The person is probably just going to sign it without even having any real idea what they're signing. And that can go back and forth many times, and it can go back and forth many times in a short period of time. One thing I would tell you is that is against the law, and that can be prosecuted, criminally prosecuted, as senior abuse. So if you are aware of somebody going back and forth, step in and help them understand that you may need to be doing some other things that medically the person may need help, or it may need to be determined whether that person is truly capacitated and able to make that kind of decision. So it gets really ugly really fast if you're not paying attention to what's going on in your family members' lives. And some of the signs are not real clear, and some of the signs are crystal clear, but other members of the family don't want to acknowledge. Yeah. And so doing it now, while everybody is of sound mind, is a really good time to do these things. And then at the end of it, it's got where all the signatures and notary and witnesses need to be signing this information. So, Skipper, I left you 2 minutes.
Lots of information. And it's information overload for me, but it is things that need to be done. And a lot of it, the more you have, the more important it is to get it done.
Right.
And the more family you have that may argue over it, the more important it is to get it done. And having different people is really important, where I just think, well, Kathy can make all my decisions. Well, if Kathy's in the same vehicle I'm in when we wreck, she can't make those decisions. Right. So having a list, don't mean it's going to go down that far, but it is good to know who's next in line to take care of my things. So
right.
Really good information. We do want to say that next weekend is 4th of July weekend, and we will not be having this 9:30 class.
No class next week, but you have homework. And the homework will be, a link will be put into the text box for the video folks out on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're watching. It's how to make a will in 7 steps. And it looks like this when you go out and you find it. You've got 2 weeks to do your homework. I copied it so that you've got blank paper across from each of the items, so you can just write it right here in this document. But you have to go in and do some things that you may not have already done. You need to go in and list all your assets. All of your assets. Could be savings and retirement accounts, could be investments, could be real estate, could be life insurance policies and annuities, and it could be jewelry, it could be furniture, it could be vehicles. You need to be listing all of those things. And then you need to decide who gets your money when you die. That sounds really crass. Really, it does. But the reality is you need to make that determination as to where is it going to go when you die, because each of us is going to die. So you got to know where it's going to go. And where those belongings, if you have your list of assets, you may just go down and identify somebody for each of your assets. You can do it however you want. It is yours. Do it your way. Choose guardians for minor children. You need to put that in here as well. And then we will talk about how to write it out so that you can do it yourself, or you can take that information. It makes it so easy for an attorney to just fill in all the blanks and fill in the information that you need if you've already taken the time to identify it. Because if you're sitting in front of them and they're asking you these questions, I promise you're going to forget some of the things that you have because you haven't really thought about it. So please take the time, do the homework. We are almost done. And I am so excited and can't wait for people to tell me that you put together your notebooks, Skipper Calder, you put together your notebooks, and you're ready to go. Because you will feel that weight come off of your shoulders as well.
Good job. Good job. All right. That's going to conclude. Remember, next week, no class. We'll start back at 11 o'clock with horse training with a message. We'll see you then. Goodbye.